One aspect of an animal's phenotype that we can expect to be particularly susceptible to environmental change is animal communication. I'll give you a very simple but intuitive example. So acoustic background noise is a real challenge for animals that use vocalizations to communicate. And this is pretty obvious because background noise will tend to mask those vocalizations. Now, animals have been shown to use a variety of different strategies for maintaining a detectable signal. One of the most common is to increase signal intensity. So in this particular case of vocalizations, simply increasing the volume of those signals to make sure that you remain being heard above that acoustic background noise. Now, noise is not just limited to acoustics, it's also a problem with visual communication as well. So for many years, I've been studying male Caribbean anolis lizards that use these motion displays to advertise territorial ownership. Now, the noise here is all that windblown vegetation that's occurring in the background. It has the same masking effect to make these movement displays more difficult for conspecifics to be able to detect in the environment. Now, the other thing that's really nice about anolis is that there's lots of different species and they live in lots of different habitats. So they're a wonderful system for investigating evolutionary divergence here in animal communication as consequences of changes in the environment. And one of the outcomes of that research is that male lizards tailor each display according to the prevailing conditions at the time that display is given, this thing called contextual plasticity. And when we look across the different species living in their different habitats, they have predictably diverged in those displays according to the conditions experienced in those respective habitats, which is wonderful and makes a really nice example of evolutionary divergence through adaptation. What if we found another group of lizards that live in very similar habitats to what we see in the Caribbean? Would we see the same types of signal strategies evolving? So this is the question I'm going to address in this talk. Now, anolis are in a family of iguanids, the New World. There's another family of lizards called agamids, and these are in the Old World, that also use movement and territorial advertisement displays. So these are all male lizards. As you can see, they're very different, lots of different body parts being used. So there's not a lot of similarity here. But the thing with these particular lizards is that they've been studied in species that have very different habitats to what we see in the Caribbean. So perhaps we wouldn't expect to see any similarities as a consequence of that. There is one group within agamids, one genus, that have independently evolved this dewlap, this throat fan. This genus are the Southeast Asian Draco lizards that are also using these visual displays to advertise territorial ownership. Again, these are males. And you can see there are similarities in the behavior between these two groups. The other remarkable thing about Southeast Asian Draco is they really do seem to occupy the same range of habitats as what we see in the Caribbean. So we did this very ambitious large study to have a look at multiple different species of Southeast Asian Draco and compared their behavior to what we see in the Caribbean with the anolis lizards. And when we did that, we found something really remarkable. In Southeast Asia, those lizards are again individually tailing the production of those displays according to the conditions at the time of display, that amount of windblown vegetation occurring in the background. This contextual plasticity, it's identical to what we see in the Caribbean. When we look at Draco species living in different habitats, again, we see that evolutionary divergence as a consequences of the differences in the conditions experienced in those respective habitats. And this is the same as what we also see in the Caribbean. So we actually have deep time convergence in the strategies being evolved in these two separate groups in response to environmental noise. If you're interested in more details, the paper is out now in Ecology Letters. And as you imagine, this is a big project, so I'd just like to acknowledge my co-authors. In this paper, we give a lot of evidence to suggest that deep time convergence in response to the challenge of environmental noise is really widespread in animal communication and is an example in hundreds of million years separation for these particular groups. So natural selection seems to only have a limited set of adapted solutions to the problem of coping with environmental noise.